One of the biggest challenges of early childhood is having a child who hits. What do you do when you have a violent child, a child who gets emotionally dysregulated, and then they come at you? It's all arms and legs, feet and hands. They're kicking, they're hitting, they're screaming at you, they're telling you that they hate you. And all you did was say, "No, sweetie, you can't stay at the park any longer. It's time to go home."
Or you cut their sandwiches in triangles instead of squares.
I know. I mean, I've said this before. You always cut in squares or rectangles first, because if they want triangles, you can just go diagonal. If you've gone triangular first, it's really hard to turn them into a square. But we digress. What do we do when we've got a child who is really upset, so much so that they're becoming physically aggressive towards us, usually towards mum? The reality is they don't do it towards dad so much. That's what we discuss today on the Happy Families podcast. G'day, welcome to the Happy Families podcast, real parenting solutions every single day on Australia's most downloaded parenting podcast. We are Justin and Kylie Coulson, and we are delighted to have you join us today. If you're new to the pod, thanks so much for jumping on board. Today, a conversation about kids who get aggressive and violent. We've had this happen in our family. I remember years ago, my little brother was terrified because one of his kids was constantly hitting his wife. And it always seems to happen around about the age of, let's say, 3-ish as a general rule. Kylie, you've got an early childcare background. This is what you lived for when you were younger and working in that industry. Were kids violent? Do they hit each other at kindergarten, preschool? I'll take that as a yes.
Wherever there are children, there will be violence.
Yeah, constant separation. Hey, you two, stop using your hands. We have soft hands.
Hitting, biting, hair pulling,
and
scratching.
You've got to use
pinching.
those lines, right? It's all about, we have gentle hands, we have soft hands, we have nice hands, we have kind hands. So let's discuss this. I want to initially just make it really clear. This is, as you've laughed at me for asking the question, a developmentally appropriate behaviour that we see all the time when you have children who don't know how to regulate their emotions and therefore their behaviours, because your behaviour follows your emotion. If you're feeling dysregulated emotionally, especially if you're young, you'll typically become dysregulated in your behaviour. Impulse control is not the strong suit of a 3-year-old.
The reality is they've got these really big emotions, and they've got to be able to find a way to let that emotion move through their body in an appropriate way. But as a 3-year-old, they don't learn that on their own. No,
I mean, emotion regulation kind of begins in a very ordinary way from about the age of 3, and it gets better and better until researchers believe that somewhere between 8 and 10 is when the typical child can usually regulate their emotions and therefore their behaviours in a reasonable way most of the time in most circumstances, with a lot of caveats, right? Because if they're hungry or they're tired or they're stressed or if they're feeling...
If they're 42.
Well, I'm more than 42 now.
What did I say? I was
no, but
about
I did feel targeted when you looked at me the way that you said that. It's not just,
maybe I was talking about me.
Well, you're not quite 42 anymore either. It's not just emotion regulation, though. There's also language limitations. So children do know how to communicate, and therefore we expect, since they know how to talk, we expect that they're going to share with us their feelings all the time at this age.
As a young parent, there was a massive emphasis on the terrible twos.
Oh, yes.
But as we parented each of our children, we actually recognised that 2 was quite manageable.
Compared to
3 was not. 3 was where it really hit. And I don't know if that's because we've progressed as a human race and we've been able to kind of start to manage our own emotions around 2 years. But at 3, they're so much more articulate. They're so much more capable in these tiny little bodies.
Except when they get angry, except when they become emotionally dysregulated. And the size of their emotions, like the emotional intensity of a 3-year-old is massive. The only other place that I see the emotional intensity of a 3-year-old is an angry red pea plater who gets cut off or who isn't being allowed to drive fast enough. That was so funny in my head. You're not even smiling at me. I thought that was a really great...
No, because I wouldn't say it was a pea plater.
Oh, okay.
I'd say it's a middle-aged...
a boomer, maybe a boomer. There's anyway, let's move on. So we've got inhibition and impulse control low. We've got high emotional intensity. We've got limited language capacity. Hitting is communication when words fail, when frustration and other needs simply become overwhelming. And I just want to emphasize, before we get into my 3 solutions, you might have others, because we haven't discussed this ahead of time. This behavior, while it isn't, every child doesn't do it, it's not considered developmentally inappropriate. It's normal. It's typically going to happen when children are less mature. The only time that I see it with older children is when they are extremely dysregulated, or when you have a neurodevelopmentally challenged child. So if you've got a neurodivergent child, then you might see it in older kids as well. In fact, I was at a school about a month ago, and a child escaped the classroom that they were in. They ran into the room where I was giving a talk to students, literally raced up the front and looked at me and then whacked me. And they kind of, as they did it, I think they realized that I wasn't somebody that they were familiar with. They didn't know who I was, and they didn't know what they were doing. And they really pulled it wasn't a punch, but they really pulled back as they made connection with me. And I mean, I wasn't bothered by it. It didn't hurt me at all. They whacked me across the shoulder. It wasn't like they hit me in the head or anything like that. But this was a child who had some cognitive difficulties, some cognitive challenges. And so sometimes you'll see that kind of behavior with older kids as well. After the break, we're going to map out the 3 things that you can do to help your child when they are hitting inappropriately, and it just keeps happening and happening. Okay, Kylie, I remember getting this distress phone call from my brother when he just said, our child keeps on hitting his mum, and it doesn't matter what we do. We've tried to hold his hands down. We've tried to tell him to stop it. We don't like it. We've lectured him. We've tried to hit him back, and he's still doing it. We don't know what to do. I mean, he was beside himself. This has been going on for about 3 months. It's not like it was a one and done thing. It was enduring. So when this happens, I've got a couple of things that I think are worth emphasizing. The first is that hitting is not okay, period. And our children need to know that. We should. It's incumbent upon us to set really clear limits, to let our children know, and maybe even by holding their hand and holding it away and saying, we have soft hands. We do not hit. It's not nice to hit. It hurts. The whole gentle parenting thing, I'm not suggesting that we get tough, that we get nasty, that we even hurt our child, but we have to communicate clearly. Absolutely, this is a boundary. You've crossed it. It's not okay. Now, we can do it lovingly. We can do it gently, but our children need to know clearly, you are not allowed to hit me.
You gave that big long list that your brother shared with you of all the things they tried. The one thing they didn't try up until that point was actually providing him with another outlet. The biggest challenge we have is that we think that because emotions are something that we feel, then they don't require action. But in order for us to process emotion, the most effective way is movement. So when we're frustrated or when we're angry, that's actually when I do the best cleaning in my house. Not only is it the best cleaning,
I should get you irritated more.
I do it so fast.
Right.
There is so much energy stored in my body through that emotion that the best thing I can do is find a positive outlet. I remember when our eldest she'd actually started school, and she was having some really, really big emotions. And so we taught her to draw angry pictures. When she was really worked up, we'd pull out the crayons and she would just do these massive storm clouds. And we told her she could draw as big as she wanted.
Cranky faces, that sort of thing, yeah.
And it worked really well. So well that we got a quite frustrated phone call from the school one day because she'd gotten in trouble and she was really frustrated. So she grabbed a texter and drew all over the carpet. And when they rang and told me, I knew exactly what she'd done. And I was so proud of her because instead of her using all of these terrible words, or worse, beating somebody else up, she had done exactly what we taught her. We just obviously hadn't emphasized paper was a really important part of the process.
All right, so I'm going to chuck out all of my notes and I'm just going to run through a handful of things that are going to be useful. Number one, we need to stay regulated ourselves. If we become dysregulated, it's not going to work. So we've got to be the adult. Even though they're trying to hit us, they're 3. The reality is, yes, it hurts a little bit, but they're not generally going to cause any significant damage either to us or to property.
I think the thing that parents get really scared of is my child's hitting me at 3, they're going to still be hitting me at 15. They're still going to be hitting me, and become violent.
Yeah, they will grow out of it, especially if you set clear limits. So be regulated, be the adult. Let them know that's not okay. But you can also then redirect them. So distraction and redirection are the answers. Like you've said, movement, doing some drawing.
Maybe they want to hit a pillow. Like if they really want that punching kind of motion, then give them a punching pillow or a punching bag.
I don't like that one. I mean, people can make up their own minds. I don't like that one because it's still, it normalizes the act of hitting as an outlet for aggression or frustration or dysregulation. And I'd rather redirect it into something else that can be physical, but perhaps that's less violent. Because if it is okay,
I think
to hit
you're
the
making
pillow,
a bigger deal of it than it needs to be. I think that it's a completely appropriate way to let off some steam.
maybe
We should do a smash room
we
for toddlers.
crash
How
test
good
dummies.
would that be?
Put the helmet on, put the gloves on. Let's go. There are a couple of other things to keep in mind, to bear in mind here. High emotions, low intelligence. So long as the kids know that they're not allowed to hurt people or property, I'm probably not too bothered about what they're doing. It's really about that distraction. And I also think once they've calmed down, we want to have... I'm constantly emphasising the 3 E's of effective discipline. What do you need right now? If you can't give them what they need right now because they're so dysregulated that you can't communicate, wait till they've calmed down and then problem solve. There was clearly an unmet need there. What are we going to do next time? And with rehearsal, I mean, you're not going to get their first go.
And not with a 3-year-old. It's going to take a long time.
Yeah. Like you look at how long it takes to learn to tie up shoelaces or learn how to write their name.
Or learn to walk.
Regulating emotions is way harder than any of those things. But on repeat, what are we going to do next time that happens? We failed that time. What did we do? What did we agree on? So what can we do next time? How can I remind you? On repeat, lots of empathy, lots of perspective taking, lots of conversation around this. And by the time they're around about, 13, 14, they usually will have stopped it just in time for the next brain explosion, which will kick it off again.
You're not making anyone feel very good right now. One of the other techniques that's so powerful, and I remember reading somewhere, it's not enough to do it in the moment. You actually have to practice with your kids when they're calm.
Yeah.
But breathing is so powerful. Teaching your children to take some deep breaths when they feel like all of that pent-up energy is about to explode out of them.
I remember that time when Emily was probably about 4 or 5 and she was having the biggest dummy spit. She had been violent. She'd been throwing things and kicking, and I took her to her bedroom and said, I'm going to stay with you unless you kick me out, but I know that you're really angry right now and we need to work through this. And she jumped on the bed, hid under the blankets and started going, "Argh," and just being a wild animal under the blankets. And we did that grounding technique, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding technique. And she did not want to do it. I said, I reckon even under the blankets, there's 5 things you can see. Tell me 5 things you can see. And she screamed and she said, no, I'm not doing it. And I said, well, I reckon if I was under the blanket with you, I'd be able to see. And I listed off 5 things: the hair on her arms, her knee sticking into her chin because of the way she was sitting, the sheets, and so on. And then 4 things you can feel. And I talked to her about how I could feel it getting hot under there, and I could feel the sheets rustling against my arm, and so on. And then 3 things that you can hear. And I said, can you tell me 3 things that you can hear? And she said, no. And I said, I bet that if you did tell me, you could hear your breathing, your heavy, angry breathing, and you could hear my voice, and maybe you could hear the sheets rustling. And then I said, what about 2 things you can smell? Can you tell me that? And I could hear her calming down. And she said, I'm not telling you what I can smell. And I said, I reckon you can smell your stinky feet under the sheets. And she laughed. And I was like, gotcha. And then 1 thing you can taste. And then she told me what she could taste. She gave me her standard answer: my spit. And within a minute, she was calm and she climbed out from under the sheets and she gave me a cuddle, and then we had a chat. What do we do next time? Should we practice it now? And it was so useful. Grounding techniques, breathing, distraction, drawing, physical activity. These are the solutions to work through it. And then the problem-solving conversation comes later.
So you've talked about all of these things that we can do to help kind of work through it after the fact.
Yeah.
But there's a couple of things that we probably just need to tap into to help kind of prevent us from getting to that point. We talk about HALTS. If we can make sure our children are fed, they're not hungry.
Not hungry, angry, lonely, tired, or stressed.
we're going to go a long way to actually preventing having these major meltdowns. We're not going to be able to stop it all the time, but I think that food and sleep, they're our biggest contributors more times than not.
Yeah, and connection. I mean, sometimes kids are just lashing out because they're bored. And keep your kids off screens because they will often lash out when they can't have a screen. And frankly, if your child is under 3, your kids don't need screens. The reason they've got screens is because they're convenient for us, not because they're good for the kids. We need to wrap that up there. Otherwise, we're going to turn this into a full-length seminar. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Coulson from Bridge Media. Mim Hammonds provides research, admin, and additional support. And if you would like more resources to help your little people and their big feelings, we're going to link to our Little People Big Feelings webinar in the show notes. It will make a world of difference when you're dealing with your kiddos and their big moments. If you're new to the pod, thanks so much for listening. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. And we will be back tomorrow to talk about how we can filter apps for a phone or whether we should just trust our child. It's a tricky question on the Happy Families podcast tomorrow. We'll talk to you then.